Good morning and welcome to another live session of graphology and fun and queries and questions. As people come online, we shall slowly cater to all the queries that you might have in graphology. Whether I have personally taught you or somebody else has taught you, doesn't matter. You can come online and you can ask the questions related to graphology. And as we get into the topics, as we get into the various conversations, we shall try to highlight and enlighten the aspects of graphology. So, right now, I've got a couple of questions which I received through email, and once we get to them, then we can go through the questions which are going to be posted in the chat too by the live audience. All right, so the first question which I have received is that when a person is doing analysis and they are not able to have a good flow of analysis, you are a graphologist, you know how to analyze, you got a lovely handwriting sample in front of you, the person in front is ready to listen to what you've got to say, but once the analysis starts, somewhere you get stuck. After, let's say, 2 to 3 points, 5 to 6 points, suddenly you know you got stuff to say, but the flow kind of breaks. The flow kind of becomes a bit inconsistent. So, how can you, as a graphologist, deal with that? So, for this, what we can do is something called as string analysis. String analysis is a technique which I teach to my students, where you can connect the dots one after the other for the observations that you make. And as you keep on making the observations, you'll be able to not only analyze more, but you'll be able to have a flow, a sort of a flow when you're analyzing. Okay. So the first thing is that let's say you've finished macrographology course and micrographology course. Like you've done the basics, you've done the advanced, you're quite well versed with different topics. But now, when you got the handwriting sample in front of you, you're kind of confused where to start, what to do, how to have continuity. So, this is my technique. I hope it benefits you and when you use it. So, generally, what I do is that when I get the handwriting sample first and I initially have a look at it, it, uh, it I look out for the traits which are going to be most obvious. It's like when somebody gets hurt at multiple places on the body, the hurt which is the biggest is normally shown first. If the person gets hurt in different places, they normally show that place where they've got hurt the most. And then they go to the other tiny places where they also want to point out. So, same way, when you are doing anatomy analysis, the most obvious traits which are there in the writing, which you seem to identify immediately, you can start from there. Like sometimes it can be the large handwriting size, sometimes it can be the slant of the handwriting, it can also be the line spacing, it can be the letter O or the letter S, something with that is really popping out immediately as soon as you see. So once you get the analysis done of that uh, trait, you can continue forward, and as you continue forward, you will be able to manage more analysis. So from one trait to the other trait, and the other trait to the other one, clues tend to develop, and they sometimes can correlate with each other. And there are times when it can completely contradict what you say. There are times when during analysis you can see contradictory traits in a person's writing, but you have to say what you see and let the other person the person in front of you decide whether what you're saying is right or wrong, whether it's good or bad. Because here in graphology, we are here to do handwriting analysis. We're not here to do handwriting judgment. Let's say, for example, you see somebody's writing which has got a very large letters. Now, normally in graphology, when we see large letters writing, it shows that the person is very expressive, very outgoing, and they want to highlight their thoughts and they like to be visible when they go out. Now, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Is not for me as a graphologist to decide. I have to tell the analysis to you, and you have to tell me whether you feel that is good for you. So maybe if you are a news presenter, or maybe if you're a master of ceremony for events, then having a large writing may be a compliment to you. Or maybe even if you're a teacher, you could use this to your benefit. But let's say if you're a quiet tailor in your shop, quietly doing your work, or you're a researcher doing your work, then maybe this kind of a handwriting may be contradictory to what you would want to have as a personality character or a character trait. So when you do analysis for somebody and you see certain points, you just make sure that you just do the analysis and the other person decides whether they're able to agree or disagree, or whether they like or don't like certain points about themselves. Okay. So now the next question which I got in my email over here is that, is it better to receive a sample on a ruled paper or a blank paper? Is it better to have a handwriting sample based on a lined paper or a completely white sheet of paper, blank? Now, before I answer the question based on the client, first I have to answer the question based on the graphologist. That if you have a skill to analyze writings, your skill will determine whether you can do it for both pages or only one page. Initially, as a graphologist, you are taught to analyze writings only on a blank paper. But even a ruled paper has certain uh, preconditions after which you can analyze handwritings on such a paper. And if the person gives you a sample, that also is a point of analysis. Let's say you give them a choice. Here's a ruled paper, here's a blank paper. And now they choose which paper to use. Now, if the person chooses a blank paper, that can be a point of analysis where the person wants to be, in a way, free to express themselves. They don't want any preloaded preconditions. They want to be free. Their expression wants to have a free environment. Now, if the person chooses the ruled paper, that can also be a point of analysis where the person chooses to have maybe an orderly life, a life where the rules and regulations are preset. They feel comfortable working or being in a place where there's a set system. So that can also be a compliment. So tomorrow, if you do analysis for somebody and they choose a paper, can you imagine even before they write, if you say a few points about their choice of paper, that can also be an analysis. So it can add to the shock value you can give to the person when you're doing analysis. And in that way, it's a bit of fun. All right. So I hope my voice is audible and you're able to listen in to the conversation that we're having over here. All right. Now, next. We have another question over here. What if the person is not feeling well? Let's say you have a client coming towards you and they're not feeling well. There's some kind of illness. They're feeling drowsy, sleepy, sniffling with cold or cough or fever, whatever. That's not a problem. In fact, if the person is having some kind of a ill health and they tell you about it, you can use that opportunity to find out that ill health in the person's writing. So that's actually how we do a bit of research. In graphology, if I want to know how to find illness in the person's writing, I have to collect and observe multiple people's handwriting samples who got that kind of illness. For example, heart disease, where you get blockage near the arteries, and the person needs to go through a certain surgery to free up the arteries. Now, this condition can be seen in the handwriting, but once I get multiple samples in relation to this condition, then we can see that a certain trait in that handwriting keeps on popping up no matter who is in front of you. Same way, if a person is not feeling well and they come to you for analysis, if you ask them what's their condition, what's their problem, what are the symptoms that they are feeling, and then if you try to see which are the odd letter structures or which are the odd formations which keep popping up in the handwriting sample. If, let's say, you're not able to make out what is the exact trait which is coming up in the sample, then what you could do is that you can wait for the person to get well, you can wait for the person to get normal, and again get the handwriting sample, another one when they are fit and fine. So then you've got handwriting sample of them when they are sick, and you've got a sample of them when they are well. And then you can see which traits over here are absent in the sick sample, and then you can do the permutations and combinations, and you can remove the common traits, and you can pick out traits which have come specially because the person was sick. Now, when I say sickness, it doesn't mean only health related sickness. It could be relationship difficulties, it could be financial difficulties, career it could be career difficulties. Any place where the person experiences difficulty, that will show up as a that would show up as a odd trait in a hunting sample. Now all you have to do is just compare samples which have got the trouble compared to the samples which don't have the trouble. And over a period of time, you'll see and you'll be able to experience, you'll be able to see and experience different uh, unique traits in the person. So let's take, for example, so far in my research, we've been able to understand a bit about the heart, bit about the dental health of the person, the gastric, the stomach and the intestine health. We can come to know the problems related to joints, back, shoulder, headaches. There's a research going on for kidney and migraines. So anybody who's going to watch this video later on, if you have a certain illness, whether it's health, finance, relation, career, whatever it is, you can send in your sample to the email address which I will put in the comment section below, and you can specify what is your problem so that I can use it as a kind of a log to preserve. And as I get multiple handwriting samples with the same problem, then I'll open up all the samples, and over a period of time I'll be able to understand which trait keeps on popping up in the samples. Okay, all right. So, in the case of one question has come up here, if the letters M and N are ending in with a curvature to the left, making an angle. So now, yes, the letter M, N, W, U, V, these five letters have been known to show clues about your dental health. Now, this is a whole big lecture if I have to explain what are the properties of M, N, W, U, and V. I do teach this in my advanced micrographology course. But for short, what I want to explain is that When you have abnormalities in the letter structure M, N, U, and W, that is where you will see abnormalities in the dental health. Alright. So, for example, if let's say the M has to have a good hump or the N has to have a good hump and you got a sharp point instead of a smooth hump, that can show a certain issue in the gums. Let's say your M has got a loop where normally an M doesn't need a loop. Then the loop shows complications. It could be a cavity, it could be some food particles stuck between the teeth, it could be a developing gum related ailment. So, as you observe the letter structures deviate from their normal structure, you will see that there are going to be clues about your dental health. Okay. So yes, M, N, U, W, V, these are the letter structures that we need to look out for if we want to understand more about the dental health of a person. Alright. Okay. So any other questions, any queries, any more topics you'd like to discuss? So I've got another question here from my email. What if the person is left-handed or right-handed? Yes, when the person is left-handed and right-handed at a micrographology level, there are slight fluctuations in the way the person writes. For example, if I'm a right-handed person and I'm writing English, my hand goes away from the words. It tries to go away. Whereas if I'm a left-handed person, my pen gets driven into the topic, into the sentence. Let's say I'm doing the crossbar of letter T from left to right. I pull my fingers if I'm a right handed person, and I push my fingers if I'm a left handed person. So these minute differences between a left handed and right handed person can come up as a trait in the handwriting. Okay. So if you feel that you want to share any trait or sample which you want to specify or you want to know more about, you can send it to me on my WhatsApp number. I'll just post my WhatsApp number here and you can share the sample with me live. And as you share the sample, then you will be able to get the feedback of it immediately. Okay. All right. So the next question I've got over here is that where does why does handwriting alter? Why does handwriting change? See, handwriting is like a body language on paper, and if handwriting changes, it's the direct result of your body language changing. So let's say today I am happy and excited to do this video and to be online with you. So my body language is going to be like this, like a different body language. Let's say tomorrow, if I'm sad and unhappy, and my next video session I'm not really interested in, then again the whole body language changes. You can come to know that the formations, the body formations, the body language changes with the mood, with the emotion, with the situation. Same way, as your handwriting reflects all these things on the paper, it is also going to change, and these are clues. Now, the variation of change will show you whether it is natural or whether it is difficult. So, let's say, for example, the letter O. Now, we would like to have a letter O which is perfectly circular, but we can't make it every time. Once in a while, we get the joy of having a perfectly circular O, and there's a certain fun factor in it. But if we have O which sometimes goes a little thinner or fatter, or the structure is not always perfect, that's fine. It still looks like a O. But once the O structure becomes more imperfect, like it starts to open up, gets loops, it gets flakes, it gets some hooks inside it. That is where the deviation of the letter structure become more than normal, and that's where the change or the alteration of the body language is quite different. It's much noticeable. So we will go for next question. So as days are passing by, new formations come out. So how do you understand new formations? Okay. So yes, we are living on Earth where there are at least around 4 billion people who know how to read and write. Maybe more. It could be more. So it's mostly expected that the letter structures which are taught in school are going to alter over a period of time. And in the person's lifetime, he's going to go through various difficulties and challenges. As the person goes through these experiences, the person has to evolve. And as he evolves, the body language will change, the handwriting will change. So if you learn the concepts behind the letter structures, then it won't matter what language comes or what letter formation comes, you'll be able to calculate it. It's like when you were in first or second standard, first or second grade in your school, you learned about the plus and the minus. And now, because you know what the plus and minus do, you can do as many number of additions as possible. Of course, the bigger the number, slightly more time it takes, but you can solve all the problems. Same way, if you know the concepts of graphology based on geometry, which I teach, then what you can do is that you can get any sample, whether it's English or Bengali or it's Arabic or Japanese, any language on earth can be analyzed if you understand the letter structure dynamics. Okay? If you have a teacher already, ask them to teach you the geometric patterns of the letter structure because that geometric pattern is more important to learn. If you are taught about a certain letter structure, let's say a teacher of graphology teaches you 20 types of T's or 30 types of letter S or 40 types of letter O. Initially, you feel like a compliment, like, wow, see, I know 40 types of different O, what they mean. But do you think 40 types of O is sufficient to analyze 4 to 5 billion people's writing? There's a extremely high possibility of you looking at a O structure in a sample which you have not learned. Plus, to remember all those 40 types of O, what each one means, that's going to be a headache. Can you imagine trying to remember uh, as a memory all the additions and subtractions of all numbers? It doesn't make sense, right? So, whoever your teacher is, wherever you learn graphology, please ask them to teach you about the geometric influence and the geometric importance of the letter structure. So let's take, for example, the letter A is somewhat looking like this. Now, this letter structure could be in another language. It could mean the same thing. It could have a same thought pattern. Let's take, for example, the letter M. The letter M structure can be seen in the Hindi language. It can be seen in the Tamil language. It can be seen in Sanskrit language. So there's a congruence in this mindset no matter which language it is. But if you learn M as M, you will be stuck only with English language, only with that letter structure. Okay? So variations are going to happen, but if you know the concepts of the geometric patterns which are easy to use for the train for the calculation of the letter structures, then that is going to be fine. All right. So what does starting stroke mean? When a person has got starting stroke generally shows that the person wants to think, and as they think, they want to have a kind of a pre-thought or a thought pattern before the main activity. Let's take, for example, you are going out of your house to go to your office for work. Before you leave your house, you just want to check whether your hair and your tie and your suit and your briefcase or your laptop, all things are all set. You can leave your house without checking it, but you want to check before you go. Let's say you want to ask a question to your teacher, you want to ask a question to the person who's taking an interview. So you initially you ask, is it okay for me to ask the question? So that's the starting stroke. You think before the main action. You think before the main thought. A kind of a small thought before the bigger one. That's a starting stroke. Okay, so we have another question here. Please explain vanity. Is it in the letter T? So vanity, yes, vanity can mean a false sense of pride. Let's see the dictionary meaning of the word vanity. Alright, so I search for the word vanity. So, vanity as a dictionary means inflated pride in oneself or one's appearance. So, when you got vanity, it depends on your age. If you're a young 5, 6 year old girl or a boy and you're feeling fancy about the new clothes that you wear, sometimes we feel that when the child says, look, I'm so pretty, we feel, oh, it's so cute, so lovely. So for a child, that statement may not be vanity, it's just that they want to express innocently the beauty of who they are. And that innocence allows that statement to not become vanity. Okay. So let's take, for example, if as an adult I'm able to maintain that innocence and say, wow, look at my t shirt. I love this great t shirt. It looks so nice on me. Now, if I'm saying it from the perspective of innocence and just a random good phrase or a good sentence, then it doesn't become vanity. But as an adult, if I have a sense of self pride and self importance and self entitlement, like look at me, I've got this lovely T-shirt. Look at my new specs, and you know, then that is where it becomes too much. So vanity can be seen in the letter T. Normally, if you have the letter T taller than the letter H, okay, if the stem of T becomes taller than letter H, that's where you can see that vanity can be a kind of a clue there. And vanity is not only seen from a taller TNH, you have to have multiple traits. So it could be larger handwriting size, like abnormally too large, or extremely dominating middle zone letter structures. Like let's take for example, you write the letter H, and the top line of letter H is so short that it almost looks like letter N. So when you have a dominating middle zone, dominating large size letters, T taller than H, and these kind of things which highlight pride, highlight self importance, this leads to vanity. So yes, letter T is one of the letter structures you can look out for if you want to know whether the person is overconfident or having inflated pride for themselves. Good question. Okay. Now another question over here is, right, how do our mom and dad influence our handwriting? Okay, I've got this question on my email over here. How does a mother and father influence the change in handwriting? So, generally, as a child, when you grow up till the age of 14 to 15, your brain cells are constantly in a mode of development and growth. During this time, whatever you learn, whatever you observe, whether it's directly taught to you or you just observe something, it all becomes a sense of programming. And this programming is generally what you carry forward your entire life. So let's take for example, right now in front of you, if a cockroach or a big lizard runs across the wall, what would you do? Now some people would say, I'll scream and shout and run away. Some people will feel disgust. Some people feel, wow, I got a new thing to click a photo of. Somebody will take a broomstick or a slipper and whack the lizard. Somebody will not just do anything, they're like, who cares? So the situation is same, but the programming which you have will reflect in the way you respond to the situation. So generally from the age of 0 to 14 years, 15 years of age, that's when the programming is taking place. It's like your mind's CD is burning, and once the CD is finished, then that CD runs your entire life based on the programming. Now, in the terms of the human being, the programming is not permanent, but as you grow older, the programming becomes more and more deep within you. Okay, so if you have an old person, then their programming is much more imbibed in them. That's why when we come to graphology and we somebody wants to do some graphotherapy for themselves, the younger they are, the faster it is and the easier it is to bring about a change in them, because they are more uh, flexible in their programming. I have seen sometimes older people also changing, but mostly they take longer time to change because the nature of their thoughts is more hardwired, it's more uh, stuck in a web which is used since years. To change that web of thoughts, to change that constant combination of thoughts, takes time. So, if let's say a lizard is in front of you, and logically you know that you got nothing to be afraid of, you are at least 1,000 times heavier than that lizard. So, logically you know that you're not supposed to be scared, but somewhere in you, there's some kind of a fear coming up. So, this fear you can let go through graphotherapy and through handwriting changes. But if you are a younger person, the result of this change will be faster. As you grow older, once you go to 30s and 40s and 50s and 70s, so as you grow older, this programming will be much more difficult to change. Okay, all right. So we got another question here. What if you know someone at home, like a teenager is lying? Where would it be evident in writing? So if a teenager is lying, now specifically because you mentioned a teenager lying can mean two things. One is that he is being programmed to lie, or second thing, maybe the environment is such that the truth or honesty is not easily accepted. Let's take, for example, the child has a history of breaking stuff. He's got butterfingers. He's not able to hold things very clearly, and he's breaking his glasses, breaking the crockery, and he's a bit clumsy. Now the child has developed a fear over a period of time because every time he breaks something, his mom and dad or his elders of the family, they constantly just fire and just scold him for what he's done. Of course, he's done something wrong. He needs to be pointed out for that. But if he's constantly given harsh treatment for the mistakes that he does, then the child tends to protect himself with lies. Now, lies, no matter if it's protection or if it's programming or if it is just a temporary attitude issue, normally the extent or the severity of the lie can be seen in the change in the letter structure. How much the letter structure deviates, that is how much the lie will be. And what the lie is about can be seen based on what the letter structure means. So let's take, for example, you see this teenager's handwriting sample and his letter B is almost same as the normal B. That means whatever the letter B represents, that person will not lie or be dishonest about that topic too much. But let's say his letter C is extremely distorted, like the normal C is like this and the C which he writes is completely distorted. Now that is where the person can have a lying aspect of that topic. So when you want to know whether a teenager is a liar or an honest person, even if we say he's honest, is he honest for about everything? Or if we say he's a liar, is he a liar about everything? If you want to know what the teenager is lying about, you need to check the letter structure. The more deviating the letter structure, the more uh, intense or the more deep the lie will be. You got letter S which is looking normal, then the aspects of the letter S the person is going to be honest about. As the person deviates, that same letter structure will start to be a lie. The topics of that letter structure will start to become topics of lying. So use this clue to deal with teenagers well, and not only teenagers actually, everybody around you, whether it's a child, whether it's a teenager, whether it's an adult, old age, doesn't matter. A professional, your spouse, your helper, your colleague, anybody. You got people around you, you want to know what are these people going to lie about. Look at the letter structure, understand what's the meaning of it through my YouTube channel. I've posted all letter structures of English alphabets in the channel. You can look at it and then you can get clues. So at least when the person lies about something and you know that this topic is what he's going to lie about, you're prepared. You're able to you're able to handle this situation much better. All right. Okay. So next is all right. So next question is the word narcissist is thrown around a lot. Would you be able to define narcissism in a sample? So okay, now I know the definition and the meaning of narcissism, but take let's search for the proper dictionary meaning of it. Narcissistic personality disorder, one of the several types of personality disorders, is a mental condition in which people have an inflated sense of their own importance, a deep need of excessive attention and admiration, troubled relations, and a lack of empathy for others. So, when you're talking about narcissistic personality, you've got quite a few things you have to observe. So, let's go one by one. This is a definition which I can see over here. So, based on a definition, we can have different observation points. So, I'm looking at the symptoms over here. So, the first symptom is inflated sense of self importance. Inflated sense of self importance could be seen in large letter structures and inflated loops. Like, the letter E has a loop. The loop has to be half the size of the actual letter structure. But if the E becomes too big, the loop becomes humongous, like as if it looks like a letter O instead of letter E. Then, whenever you see loops in the writing, and these loops look too big, like you write a D and the loop on top looks huge, and this becomes an inflated sense of self-importance. Then the next is a deep need for excessive attention and admiration. Okay, so that could relate to narrow word spacing, narrow line spacing, wide letter spacing. It could also have clues when it comes to overly excessive crossbars. Like you have a crossbar which is really huge. The T letter is so small, and you got a crossbar that's really massive. That's not going to be uh, very proportional. So disproportionately large aspects of letter structures, whether it's a crossbar, whether it's a loop, whether it's an angle, this weirdly large aspects, these can lead to clues. Troubled relations. Now, troubled relations have got many traits. So, of course, as I said, the letter structure which has the maximum distortion will lead you to the clues of what is the person's perspective and where the person has got difficulty in dealing with people, lack of empathy for others. Lack of empathy for others would normally be seen in pen flicks, especially pen flicks which go downwards. When you slash the pen downwards, you write a Y and you slash it downwards. You write a M and you slash it downwards. These letter structures can be uh, showing lack of empathy. So now this combination of all these traits can show narcissistic attitude in the person. Now, narcissism can be developed in a personality trait as a self-defense mechanism of lack of appreciation from loved ones in the past. So let's say as a child you do something, you know how your parents say, "Whoa, good boy, good girl, fantastic, oh you wrote a new thing, oh you did this." And the child does something and the child is given a bit of attention. Now, I'm not sure whether it's a lack of attention or it can be excessive pampering. Both of these can lead to a narcissistic attitude. So, if you are a psychologist and if you're online and if you're watching this video, you can leave comments in the section below and you can agree or disagree with what I've said so I can learn something new. But based on my experience of analyzing narcissism, normally it is showing a history of ignorance. Somewhere your loved one, your elder loved one, your teacher or your parent or your guide has ignored a certain activity which you are hoping to get some feedback. Whether it's a positive or negative feedback, that's different. At least you get some feedback. It's not that my child is doing something wrong and still I'm pampering him. No. If I have a child and if they do something wrong, at least I should give some attention to say no or do something better. And if they do something right, I should be ready to give them a compliment and say, "Yay, very good." But I think it's the ignorance of the child that generally leads to the development of narcissism. Now, on TV shows and on in movies, when you see narcissism, it's sometimes made glamorous to be narcissistic. Like the famous example of Sherlock Holmes. There's a bit of narcissism in the person's personality, that character's personality. There's a bit of a flair. Now, in that case, it looks almost like a compliment, maybe because of the nature of the work that he does, that he has to avoid certain people and maybe he has to throw his weight around in terms of his intelligence. But in normal day to day life, when you meet normal human beings and you're not meeting such special cases, then narcissism can be a hint or a clue towards past negativities and past difficulties related to ignorance of the child. All right. So that was an interesting question. Thank you very much. I got another question here. One of my students has asked, "What is the nature of my quick graphology course?" So the I have a course called as Quick Graphology. This course is specially meant for those people who don't know anything about graphology. They don't want to go all the way in graphology and then understand that they're not meant for it. They want to try it out. They like kind of test. They want to test the waters of graphology. So, Quick Graphology is a 4-hour course which I teach, and in these 4 hours, I teach very important concepts which can be used to initially start your journey of analysis and understanding people through handwriting. And although you might think that what's the big deal about 4 hours, but the topics which I teach in these 4 hours is used by all professional graphologists, and they're extremely important if you want to know strengths and weakness of a person. So let's say topics of frustration and happiness, breathing, eating habits, study habits, earning and spending habits, all these can be understood in this quick graphology course, which I teach for 4 hours. And with the trial that you give to graphology, you can come to know within a couple of days and weeks of practice whether you'd like to go forward with more deeper course, or you're like, that's enough, I'm happy with this much analysis, I'm able to enjoy and have fun. So quick graphology is like a children's swimming pool. It's like a test. You can just test yourself whether you can deal with the water of graphology. And once you feel confident, then you can go into the main adult swimming pool, or you can go into the ocean and swim with me in all the other courses of graphology. All right. So the next question is, can we see relationship with siblings through graphology? So relationship with siblings, yes, but my research in relationships with siblings is not very strong, but we can understand the nature of this person's attitude towards siblings. So if you have an elder sister or a brother, there can be a different handwriting trait. When there's a younger one, there's a different handwriting trait. All handwriting traits that deal with responsibility and obedience. These 2 points of observations need to be focused on if you want to understand how relations of siblings are there. And you see, each sibling's relation with the other is very variable. Some people have extremely friendly relations. Some people have extremely violently friendly relations with their siblings. Like, only I'm the person who can fight with my brother and nobody else. So if I fight with my brother, it's fine, but nobody else should fight. So that some people have that kind of a thing between their brother and sister bonding. The Now that nature can be seen in the handwriting, but my research to specify it as a sibling relation, that is a bit tricky. So let's say in the future, if that research becomes more clear and I'm able to specify, then maybe in a future live stream, the question can be asked again, and maybe I can answer it. But it might take a bit of while before I get a clear answer to your question. Okay, so we have another question here. Uh, what if a person has already learned graphology and then they want to learn from me? Okay, so when I teach graphology now, I don't know why, but 80% of my students are already graphologists. What the nature of the graphology which I teach is based on logic, is based on geometric patterns, and is based on simple calculations and observation. Now, what happens is that many of the students who come to learn from me, I've seen this experience in the past that their teachers have not taught them the meaning and the mechanism behind analysis of the writing. Now, that's not a bad or a good thing. It depends on the capability of the teacher. Some people are happy to be spoon fed direct traits, and the teacher tells them what to observe and what to say, and they're happy to do that kind of analysis. But there are some people who want to go deeper into graphology. They want to know the in-depth mechanism. They want to know the way it works. They don't want to do guesswork. They want to do calculations. They want to observe. They want to say an analysis sentence which makes some meaning. And when they say it, they want that accuracy. For that purpose, that is the nature of my teachings. I'm able to make sure that the student is able to deal with graphology in a more logical and in a more calculated sense. Okay, so I hope that relates to the question. Next one. Is there a way to differentiate between sample written in haste whereas a sample written in just a normal way? Yes, this normally comes up as a query. Like when you get a sample, some people say that, "Oh, I wrote this in a hurry. I hope it doesn't change the way you analyze." Or some people say, please give me some time. I want to properly sit and write so that my handwriting comes neatly so that the analysis comes better. So, yes, neatness and haste can have an influence on the way the person expresses their uh, character of who they are. But that change or that alteration is at a personality level, which is a very let's say, I won't say it's superficial, it is real, but the depth of that change is not going to change you at a core level. Like, let's take, for example, you come to me for doing some handwriting analysis. Okay, there are two people in front of me. One person is extremely angry and frustrated. He's just come after a bit of a fight with somebody. He's had a quarrel with somebody, and he's come for doing analysis. And the other person has come to do the analysis very chilled out, relaxed in a vacation mode. He is writing comfortably and giving me. Yes, these two different moods can be seen in the writing. But just think of it, if you are a person who is angry right now, do you think you suddenly brush your teeth with the other hand? Huh? Let's say you're used to brushing your teeth with your right hand, and today, because you're angry, you brush your teeth with your left hand. Doesn't happen that way, right? Certain character traits within you, certain aspects about who you are won't change with temporary issues. Of course, the severity of the issue can change, can make differences, but normally there are certain core aspects about you that don't change. So with this, what happens is that whenever you experience uh, a person who undergoes a change in the writing, and when they are hasty and when they are writing normally, it can be visible. But with experience of analysis, you know how to overcome that aspect of writing. Okay, that's it. Now the last, I think one of the last questions today, because we got just few more minutes more, and then we'll close for today. Would they have more pen flicks? Yes, if you're writing faster, the possibility of pen flicks may increase, but those pen flicks can also be a pen stop. I've seen people who are in haste who write with pen stops. So pen flicks is not an obvious outcome of writing hasty, but it can be a side effect of writing in haste. Generally, in haste, what happens is the height of letters tends to become lesser. That's one very important clue. There's a concept in graphology called as threading, and this threading concept is where we see uh, a difference in the way the person writes. Okay, so any more questions and queries? Any more doubts? Any more clues you would like to understand and go for? All right. So that's it for today. We've finished almost 52, 53 minutes. An hour is good enough for our weekly sessions. And okay, one last question. If the letter T, if the letter T is upward sloping connecting to the letter H, then what does it mean? So yeah, if you have a crossbar that becomes sloping because it wants to connect with the letter H, that means that somehow your goal is influenced by thinking and intelligence. Normally, people who write a letter T and their crossbar connects with the letter H, and because of that, the T crossbar is not straight but it goes inclined upwards. That means that their goals are influenced by intelligence. So for some people, that's a compliment, but for some people, it can be a diversion. Let's say you have a goal to reach a certain place, you want to take a certain route, and you want to reach a certain destination. Now, if you try to use your own mind and try to select your own route, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't work. So sometimes when you set a goal, your intelligence can be a complement to the goal, or it could be a distraction from the goal. So you just make sure that your T crossbar shouldn't be too slanting upwards while you're writing. Okay. And if the T is smaller in height compared to H, it shows that you're able to learn and appreciate knowledge better. If your T is taller than H, then it shows that your ego is more important than your knowledge. Okay, so that's it for today. I will have to leave the session, and there's one small question of how to write Y. But how to write Y depends on your lifestyle. You can look at my letter Y video, or you can connect with me directly. I'll show you how to write Y in a better way. Just keep it simple. A simple structure is the best way to write. Okay. So thank you very much. Have a lovely week and see you next Wednesday, and have a good life. Thank you.